Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this narration of the web series Solo Apocalypse, taken from Royal Road. If you're new to this series, there is a playlist listed down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 14. Over the course of the next few days, my course diverted from the survivor camp. I felt the distance like a physical thing, a growing isolation even more apparent with my clone there, teaching the few who would listen what was edible and what was not. First, foraged and scouted, learning what he could and teaching when not. The people from the library had been eating whatever looked edible. A number of them had experienced some side effects that I had already endured myself. Apparently, one of the greatest contributors to leveling was overcoming adversity. Dangers. I thought that it had come from killing monsters. That's when my own level-ups had occurred. This way made more sense. I also found out that I was the highest leveled person in the camp. Name, Evan Winst, level 9, class solo, strength 6, constitution 6, dexterity 5, agility 6, perception 9, intelligence 10, wisdom 17, willpower 19, charisma 4, luck 4, stat points 4. Skills, never alone, low profile. I had reached level 9 a few days ago, with no apparent bonuses. The highest level in the camp was 5, and I wondered if it was because they had safety in numbers, or if it was a result of veil of safety effects lessening what they would otherwise have to face. Or simply a testament to the absolute hell that I had been through. I kept my stat points to myself, entirely unsure where to place them. Plainly speaking, the 3 attributes that affected Never Alone were the obvious picks. However, I hesitated for the fact that there might be an enemy or danger that no amount of clones could combat. If no amount of my physical stats could ever overcome an obstacle, then the number of my clones would never matter. Did that call for placing points in those stats, or should I stick to what I knew? Instead, I bided my time, nervous, slightly, at the thought of hoarding something that could potentially save my life now, as opposed to making it better later. Still, I hoped I was out of immediate danger. I had been, aside from the first couple of days, so a little preparation for the future might not be a terrible idea. How quickly the mind adapts, I said to myself, picking over the gnarled roots. I still had nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night, of getting beheaded, stabbed, eaten, of getting my eyes gouged out. The worst part was that the mind could play these nightmares with the knowledge of how it actually was. Second, third, and fourth were the clones were still with me. They were in positions such that I was in the center of a triangle. They at the points. I could admit I was scared, terrified of this world, but I also had come to learn the swamp was beautiful, the forest magnificent. Giant pods of murky water interspersed with bridges of roots. Vines hung down from the trees above, filled with birds of all kinds. Moss covered every single surface it could grow on, touching the dreary palette of the swamp with muted brightness. Some of the wildlife, some were familiar. The birds could have even been from Earth. There were frogs croaking in the night that looked no different than what I knew. Fish close enough to the surface of the water that I could confirm that they were the same. But then there were the dino-gators, which did little but give the mind an idea of what to expect. Alligators or crocodiles in form, but thicker and larger and longer. More lumbering, maybe the size of a hippo. Yet, with an explosive speed I'd witnessed many times over watching anything edible near the waters. The wolves, which were less wolf and more something else. They had fur and 4-legged form, but the creatures were entirely alien otherwise. 2 large eyes sat in a predatory head. I avoided them whenever I could. They moved alone aside from when they were with their young. And the goblins, though I equated them to some feral swampy analog of primates, only without the fur, but green skin that mud and water seemed to slide right off of. Reptilian, in a way. It wasn't until I'd observed for longer I realized that they were amphibious as well. They dwelled in the water with ease. I'd been walking on a large route, the largest I'd ever found, and had simply followed it. The thickness had been steady until today. Today, it grew larger, which confirmed I was heading to a tree rather than away from it. The forest cleared suddenly, and I was staring at something unimaginable. The tree was such that its heights were lost in the midst of the sheer distance. The roots were enormous at the base, stretching and branching into an entire network that dug into the ground or plunged into pools of what surrounded the base. That wasn't what made it unimaginable. It was a skyscraper that was spiced into its side, an enormous building made small, cutting right into the side of the tree like it had been transplanted there, barely a third as tall as the tree itself. I could see the swamp already coming to envelop it, moss and vines hanging from its highest points, birds perched atop the roof. As if it had popped into reality. The windows and its such were still intact, the majority of the structure unbothered. Another building, once more, were the figures below at the base. People, more survivors, but so far away from insignificant that my thumb could cover their entirety. I took a seat there, on the edge of the route, right before it dipped down below the pools with twisting paths below. My original self, that is. I sat there staring at the man-made marvel, made to look so insignificant, yet so uncomprehendingly large all at once. "Holy crap," I whispered, wondering just what happened to Earth. "Notice, you have leveled up to level 10. Noticed, you have gained the class skill Solo Instinct." End of chapter. Chapter 15. It was like another set of eyes opened, like my skin breathed, and every hair on my body could speak. And then more. Like another sensory organ had opened itself up to me, only it gave me an awareness of myself and the world around me in an inexplicable way. A blessing for someone moving around dangerous places alone. Skill, Solo's Instinct. You have an innate sense for your immediate surroundings, an uncanny awareness of potential harm, opportunity, and the world around you. Multiplied further by the presence of my clones, it gave shape to the way I would be carrying myself in this apocalypse, a network of stealth and awareness. The level up had come out of nowhere and gave me credence to my theory I'd leveled when acting in accordance with my class. I'd been alone, solo. Sure, first I'd been with a group of people, but I'd chosen a more independent way, and discovered a marvel. Class aside, I wasn't naive enough to think that I would brave the apocalypse alone, though I was certain I was amongst the most capable to do so. It took me an hour to make it to the vast tree, that skyscraper that looked like a bastion of humanity, despite the fact that it had been in my view that entire time. The distance between us had been immense, compounded by the uneven terrain. I was curious and hopeful. These people seemed less haggard than those from the library, and in truth, I hadn't been expecting to find anyone else, let alone in these numbers. "Hey, check it out!" A muddied man nudged another stranger. Both wore business attire, ripped at the sleeves and knees. Had they been office workers before all of this, working in the skyscraper? "Another group," one whispered. There were more? There was a handful of whispers around, but no one stopped me. Maybe that was because I walked in a group of 4, that I seemed so imposing, or that I had come straight from the wilderness. The place looked like a refugee camp. There was no organization here. People gathered in small groups, congregating around a larger hall. But that was it. My presence wasn't questioned, was just remarked upon, as if they were blind to the danger of this place. I found a throng of people debating in the open, at the base of the skyscraper. My clones melted into the crowd, listening. I made myself small, standing to the edge of the group. "We can't stay here forever," a burly man argued, crossing his arms. "We need to get out of the swamp or we'll starve. Why would we leave a perfectly good shelter? Jackson gives us fresh water. The building—" I tuned out once I got the gist of the debate, to stay or to go. The same conversation I assumed the people from the library had. Only this group was much larger, and had much more better place to stay, if they decided so. Something itched at my back, though. I wasn't sure what exactly it was, but Solo's instinct was kicking into overdrive. Something was wrong here. The certainty was like a pit in my stomach. "We can't stay here forever. We need to get out of the swamp or we'll starve." The pitch, the tone, the volume was all exactly the same. "Why would we ever leave a perfectly good shelter? Jackson gives us fresh water. The building is all the shelter we need," came the response. What was happening? I looked around and realized people were barely moving, or rather, they were just the same motions. All of my clones started looking around, moving closer towards me. And then I spotted something that chilled me to my core. A sapling, embedded into the stranger's neck, roots piercing into the skin, spreading like veins, barely visible under their hair and then clothes. Everyone had them. When my clone stayed at my original self, I saw it like some wriggling worm or a stick bug, just made of roots, a small thing, crawling up my arm. I smashed it in a small spray of sap. The clones checked each other, smashing 2 more, and then I was running from these people. I had walked into a trap. A large group like this, why wouldn't they be attacked? They were too lax, too easygoing for all this to all be real. I caught my breath, looking backwards, and realized nothing had followed me. No one had followed me. Whatever it was, it had been dead to rights. Why? What happened? Was it controlling these people? Were they already dead? It looked like a parasite or something. That thing was embedded right into the spinal cord. I'd seen the roots spreading upwards towards the head and downwards across the spine. Those people were possessed by something. I knew they were. So, why didn't they chase me? Skill. Low profile. You are immune to unwarranted magical or technological scrying. Abilities, spells, or equipment that reveal your location are negated. Your presence can only be detected by physical senses. I was breathing hard, and any semblance of peace that I had was shattered. I thought dying would be the worst fate offered to me. I'd been wrong. There was more to fear than something so merciful. I stared at the dozens of figures across the roots, a shadow across my face. It was some kind of magical parasite then, and it hadn't noted my presence. That little thing had seen me, crawled on me, but the people who were enthralled hadn't seen me. It had to be some kind of other sense, negated by low profile. The only thing that had saved me in the end, and all these people had fallen prey to it. I realized that I wasn't just staring at a single group of people transported by the skyscraper, but countless others that had been lured here. End of chapter. I would quickly like to thank the Tier 5 members, Marky, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Oakfield, Lord Azrakul, and It's Difficult to Pronounce. Thank you very much.